Hello and welcome to Beats and Geeks, UCL Data Science Society's podcast aimed at demystifying the hype around the data science, sharing with you some of the latest developments in this exciting field, and giving you a head start in a career into the data science. I'm Grace, a first year studying knowledge, information, and data science. And I'm your moderator for today. So our main host, Hamna, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi there, I'm Hamna. I'm a first year studying social sciences with data science, and I am your host today. So in this episode, we will be talking to Rohit Ravi. Rohit is one of our own, having graduated from UCL in 2021. He is currently a graduate data science at M&G PLC, where his role involves advanced machine learning techniques. And he will be joining us today to talk briefly about his journey before UCL, before the Data Science Society, and why he started his career with M&G. He will also be talking to us about how data science is applied to asset management. Rohit, thanks so much for joining us. Please, could you tell us a bit more about yourself and your educational background?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So thanks first of all for having me on the podcast series. And as you mentioned, I was a student myself at UCL and part of the Data Science Society at some point. So it's a super exciting journey to start from there and sort of land my career in data science. My background is that I studied information management for business at UCL. It's a computing and management course. And I'm also pursuing a part-time master's in business analytics at Imperial College now, while working as a data scientist at M&G. So just to briefly tell you what I do, we support the asset management business from a research and systematic investing angle. We apply advanced analytics techniques like machine learning, as you mentioned, but also network science, optimization, and other such techniques on largely financial data sets, but also alternative data. And that's something that I'd be happy to talk about. But that's my sort of professional background. A little bit about me, I guess, personally. I'm super captivated by learning, and I love to know what people love learning about, and that's something that I try to find out from people, and that's something about me.
Wow, your background's really impressive. I hope you preferred UCL over Imperial, right?
I guess there's a place for right and wrong answer, right?
Yeah.
No, but my time at UCL was amazing. I mean, it's the most diverse place I've had the privilege of being part of, and I really enjoyed my time there, especially being part of the societies and seeing people do super impressive stuff. It was always amazing to be there.
That's nice to hear. And so what exactly prompted you to study for a master's within business analytics, and how valuable do you see your master's degree within data science?
So my motivation for going into data science, kind of just started out of seeing cool projects and cool things happening around the world. When you see how YouTube captions are generated using machine learning, or just seeing that transport problems are solved using data science, like how trains are scheduled and how social networks work and things like that. It's sort of just started from that curiosity. So digging deeper, and then you see that it's sort of numbers and these techniques that are making things happen. And that's where I really started. And I picked up a couple of electives while I was doing my course that was related to data science. Like I did a programming course in Python, where I picked up some of those initial skills, and that's where I took it really from there. And that's where I wanted to head my career towards.
Wow, interesting. And so you mentioned that you're also working as a data scientist at M&G. So could you please tell us and our listeners how you find working within the financial services industry, how data science currently fits in with your role, and also how would you contrast working within the financial industry to working like a more like a more usual role, I guess, within big tech?
Yeah. So I can kind of answer that two ways, right? So I can talk a little bit about what working in financial services is like, but specifically what working in a data science role in financial services also looks like. Financial services is super exciting. It's really fast-paced and dynamic. I think there is, almost no other sort of industry, maybe other than journalism, for example, where you're dealing with decision making on a day-to-day basis, and where numbers and information and events that happen on a day-to-day basis actually do affect what's going on and investment decisions and so on. And that does actually play a part in my role as well as a data scientist. I work in asset management, which is, a sort of subset of financial services. And asset management typically looks at taking your clients' funds and managing it on a long-term basis. So you have these long-term investment strategies, and a lot of that is a lot of the work that you do as a data scientist is geared towards that. So what do we do as a data scientist or as a data science team within asset management? So like I mentioned earlier, we support the investment desks directly from two perspectives. So one is research. So, we do research on the industry and not the sort of, the same research that's been going on fundamentally, but rather from a quantitative angle. So we take data sets that are there in financial services, pricing data, market data, fundamental data, macro data, so on and so on, and then try to use advanced analytics techniques on top of that to support individual investment desks. So whether that is in the real estate sector or whether that is in private investments or so on. But we also do a little bit of systematic work, and systematic investing is simply investing without sort of human involvement in that sense. But that can look very different across financial services because you have one extreme, which is your quant trading kind of job, which mine isn't. And on the other end, you have this rather this long-term investment strategy based work that we do. And so, the work that goes into that can vary quite a lot. And so even within financial services and within data science there's lots of sort of options. And it really depends on how fast-paced or what kind of work you want to be doing in there. Whether you're more research-oriented, you probably fit more in the quant side. Whereas if you're sort of looking for ways to make business impact using data, like a variety of data sets, that's probably fits closer towards asset management where I am.
Wow, great. It's great that it's got so many different opportunities within the financial industry. Are there any specific areas of interest within data science that you are interested in? Like personally, what is your kind of vision for data science? And if so, if there are these areas, how would you go about balancing your own personal endeavors with your formal full-time or with your formal occupation and your work within asset management?
I'm super glad you asked that, Hamna, actually, because as of the last couple of months to a year, I've been very interested in natural language processing. So that's something that I've kind of tried to pick up as my area of expertise in that sense. Not saying that I'm an expert at that at all, but I'm trying to go towards that because it's super exciting, the world of natural language processing. It started off as a rudimentary computer science based approach coming from linguistics and mixing linguistics with computer science. But now you have these large language models that use deep learning. And these language models are brilliant because you can do, they effectively understand language, and their whole aim is to understand language. And so from there, you can do so many things like extract names or keywords from text, or translate text, or find the sentiment of a text, or pick out topics or shorten down paragraphs, and you can do all of that with the same model. So that's sort of what captivated me towards it. And it's a relatively niche area of data science, but it's something you do see coming up in financial services a lot, because you do deal with a lot of text data in the form of earnings transcripts, annual reports, and all that kind of thing. And so
sorry.
yeah.
It's a newer field, isn't it, within data science? It's not like a very traditional field that's been standing for many, many years.
Yes, it is a rather new field, or I would rather say that it's a field that has gone through a sort of resurgence, right? Almost like data science itself, in my opinion, where you had a period where you had very advanced and capable techniques, but not a lot of compute power to execute them. But now, through the availability of these massive internet text corpuses and just huge amount of compute power, you're able to build these multi-billion parameter models that can actually quote unquote understand human language and be able to do things with it. And you've seen especially 2021, 2022, you have some fantastic developments in natural language processing. Some of the biggest tech companies have come out with their own language models, and they're all really interesting. But at the same side, it's still a new field, like you said, right? So we're only now slowly starting to uncover the problems that are there in natural language processing. At the end of the day, you're training on data sets that are just generated by human beings, like Wikipedia or Twitter or Reddit and so on. There's so much bias that's introduced into all of that data set. It can misrepresent views, it can misrepresent things completely and throw things out of proportion, or make it seem like the computer is telling you a fact when in reality it's not telling you anything. And so these are the challenges in the field that are trying to be addressed slowly through open source research, but it's still up for grabs, in terms of can we figure out how to do it right? And it's a hard problem to get right. Yeah.
Definitely. So this is really interesting because it definitely shows how data science is really, really applicable to all kinds of fields within life, whether that be, analysis or even psychology on the human understanding of learning. And data science definitely has a lot of potential on showing how different fields intersect. And I think that's really insightful. So on similar lines, can you please give us your take on where you see data science progress in the future within your specific industry, if we kind of shift it back to the industry focus right now?
Sure. So I think, within financial services, data science and just generally quantitative techniques is quite mature in this industry relative to some other industries, right? So you already have an entire wave of people that have gone through doing a lot of quantitative work, and what I mean by that especially is a lot of forecasting. So time series forecasting, you have a lot of statistical based methods being used on financial data sets, which are often time series. So a lot of that kind of work has been done. However, application of some other novel data science techniques in financial services is something where there is a little bit more, that's where it's picking up speed now, I feel like. So for example, network science is something that's not really used in financial services as much. So how do you represent your data set as a network and then figure out how information diffuses through it, or who's the important node in a network? And so those sort of conceptual things, they're there and they sit around and being used in other industries. But can you find a way to actually use it within a financial services industry? That's something that's quite interesting. That's one. Number two is, I would say, alternative data. So what does that mean? That means using non-financial data sets in finance, right? So remember that finance is, you're still analyzing a certain market or a certain product. It pays to have a good understanding of that market or that industry or that product, for example. And so getting data sets or data related to that, for example, if it's legal, then can I find a legal data set about legislation that was passed in the UK, for example, and
Right.
then try to perform some analytics on that. That's also something that's, I would say, picking up speed and is quite interesting to get involved with. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So it's imperative to kind of keep a strong work-life balance as a professional. Do you have any extracurricular activities that you like to engage in, or maybe like a sport or any societies that you commit to? Could you let us know what you do in your free time, please?
Yeah, of course. So I'd say like two things for myself. One, I'm a sailor. I've been sailing for a long time, and I love the feeling of being out on the water. It's a wonderful thing, and I get anybody and everybody that I can to sail with me, and I once I start talking about it, I can't stop. So it's, but I love sailing with others. I'm part of a sailing team, and we go out and compete in different events around the UK and internationally. So that's one of the things I love doing. Another thing is that, like I mentioned earlier, I love to sort of spread my love for learning. I post quite a lot on LinkedIn, and it's, generally posts related to data science and analytics, and just trying to make the topic as accessible for people who don't know much about it. And that's something that has given me a lot of sort of joy doing that, just hearing feedback from people and just doing it more. So it opens up the field for anybody. And the great thing about data science is that, and as you know, it's applied everywhere, and it just takes a spark really for people to put two and two together. So that's another thing that I love doing.
Great. If any of our listeners are fellow sailors, please hit Rohit up. I'm sure he'll be very, very happy to talk to you. So if we shift gears now, it's no secret that securing a data science job isn't a very easy feat, but this is definitely something that you managed to achieve. Is there any advice that you could give to students who are perhaps interested in getting a data science role, or perhaps you could tell us about certain skills that you acquired within your journey of learning?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. I would caveat though that I didn't apply sort of out of university straight for a data science job. As you said, that's a relatively tough thing to do. Generally, just because you do need to come in with some sort of some sort of expertise or background generally, and those early career options are not as abundant. But my journey personally was applying to a technology graduate scheme at M&G. I did an internship with them, and then I did a graduate scheme and moved internally after working there for some time into a data science role. So my sort of journey began in just technology in general. I did a computing and business course at UCL, and so I was always interested in being sort of a bridge between technical and business people. That's what I really love doing. Just taking something that's difficult to understand or technical and understanding what's the importance of it and communicating that with the business. So I feel like that was an aspect that helped me get my job and was very relevant to a technology graduate scheme. Once within there, I was doing my master's part-time, and I applied for a job internally while doing that to work with this team. And so that's kind of how I ended up in data science. But I would say if there's any skills that you can pick up to move towards that, it's maybe pick up an area of data science and get familiar with it, right? So and remember that machine learning is not everything. That's another thing that I sort of learned, is that there's a lot of interest towards machine learning, but there's so many other interesting areas of data science, like forecasting and networks and optimization, that are used just as much, if not more, right, for an industry. So picking an area and doing that, as well as picking up a little bit of coding skills and so on, can always help just getting things running and getting off the ground quickly.
Definitely. I think it's really interesting how you mentioned your graduate scheme with M&G. So I'm a first year, and I know that my class fellows and also my fellow second years, we're all very interested in the graduate schemes that are kind of, the applications have started to close, at least now. So is there any advice that you could give to fellow first years or second years who are looking into these kind of schemes to progress their career forward?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that I kind of went through this phase of just applying aimlessly for jobs, kind of just going out and trying anything without much direction in what I wanted to do. And I know that the reason for that is because you're in your first year or second year of university. It's super rare that you're going to know exactly what you want to do. But the good thing is nobody is expecting you to either. That being said, it helps to have a focus. And I always tell people that it's always easier to move towards what you like doing, or what you're good at doing once you're there, than trying to move before that. So I would always say have a job in mind that you would really see yourself doing, and then go for that, so that you're focused on something. And when it's for myself, it was technology graduate schemes at financial services companies. So I only focused on that in all my applications, at least towards the end. And I think that was an approach that helped me quite a lot.
Great. Thank you very much. So you mentioned that the finance industry is very fast paced. And of course, we know that the technology industry is always changing, isn't it? So
Right.
what do you kind of do personally to kind of stay ahead of the curve in terms of, are there any resources that you like to indulge in? Like, are there any speakers that you listen to, any podcasts, any books that you read recently that you really liked?
Yeah. So other than my master's program, which is my biggest source of learning, as I'm actively doing a course, I watch a lot of YouTube. So I watch a lot of YouTube anyway, with sort of my free time. But there's at least as of last 2 to 3 years, there's just been an explosion in terms of like high quality educational data science content and related subjects. So I mean, if I can shout out a couple of channels, there's one called Primer, which does simulations on all sorts of things like human populations and economic policy and things like that. There's another one called 3 Blue 1 Brown, which I think is a great resource to learn math in a visual way. It teaches you math in a visual way. And there's one called Reducible as well that teaches you algorithms, like traveling salesman problem, which is a core problem you learn in optimization theory. So all of these are great ways to learn data science, just making it interesting for yourself. Because for me, I always like to start with the big picture and see how something is working, and then dig down and find out that actually there's a core technique being used here, and that's how this one works. So that's the way that that's what the resource that I use the most for my journey, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think data science is so promising. It's so all encompassing with all different areas and different sectors within the world. It's really fascinating, really quite crazy to consider how it within the next 5 or even the next 2 years, data science might look like something completely different. and we might not even be able to predict what it might look like in the future. So I think that's really, really interesting that you mentioned that. And so, yeah, thank you so much for your responses. Grace, would you like to take it from here?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Roy, and thank you, Hamna, for the conversation. It was so insightful and impressive. So I just have like some more questions. So, um, I just want to know, like, can you like briefly share your typical day or like week at your work, like, or like, is there any like the good fit work style for the field, like for example you mostly have time to like focus like on your work yourselves, or like cross functionally like collaborate and have a lot of meetings, and if so, like what kinds of stakeholder you like usually collaborate with?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So my work is generally, um, you know, I'll just go for that again. My work is generally, research intensive. So we're sort of sitting down as a team on a project and intensely working on that. We're not too concerned with the sort of day-to-day operational aspects, but rather we come up with a hypothesis that we'd like to test. We gather the data for that requirement and then conduct a couple of tests with that. What we then do with that is, if we find something a little bit promising, we'd go to our stakeholder within the business, which would be an investment desk, but it could also be a different group within the business, and pitch it or present it to them. And if that seems like something promising that you could take forward, then we turn it into a project, and then we would have a very rigorous process of onboarding the data sets, building a platform around that, and then doing a much more robust study, whatever we might be doing, and then deploying the solution. So whether it's deployment in terms of like an application, or it's like an Excel tool, or it could be anything like this, we would cover all of those aspects. So it can be either stakeholder driven, so that the teams tell us, okay, this is what our requirement is, but oftentimes data science is a little bit more from the innovation side, right? So we come up with ideas on what we could try to do, and then get the business to feed into that, and then keep improving on that, and then get some ideas out. So we wear two hats in that sense. We have the delivery angle, which is your more traditional software delivery angle. But you also have the innovation piece, which you come in and try to come up with ideas, and data science is a great way to innovate, right? And so that's something that we do as well.
Oh, so it's like more, it's like rather than the routine based thing, it's more like a project based thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, the day-to-day in that sense I would say the day-to-day may not look that different, but, if you ask me what I was doing 6 months ago, I was doing something very different. So that's almost what it is. Yeah.
So my another question is that I find it's kind of like difficult to like deliver the difficult, complex, complicated like concepts and data science thing into very accessible ways. That I really like feel that like by doing this podcast thing. So like, is there like your tips on doing that? Because I think that you have like many opportunities to like deliver things and very like easy to understand way to the stakeholders.
Yeah. So, this is something that I'm still absolutely learning how to do. I think it's like a lifelong skill, and it's a very,
Yeah,
it's almost like a mission in itself, right? To figure out how to do this,
oh,
because
okay.
it's very difficult to do. Taking something complex and distilling it down, and getting somebody to buy into it is a very difficult skill, no matter what field you're in, but especially with data science, and especially with emerging technologies, you always have this side of a person that's telling, like, is that something that I want to believe in? Will that really work? It seems like a
Yeah.
lot of stuff. It sounds great, right? I mean, you're telling me all this cool stuff, but like, is it really what I want to do? Is it going to
Yeah.
work? Is it worth my time? All that. So I'm absolutely learning, but I think something that goes a long way is, especially in the context of data science, is stating your assumptions, right?
Oh,
So really telling the business stakeholder what assumptions you've taken,
yeah.
because oftentimes when you just talk about the model and the results and the
Yeah, that's
data,
very
it all sounds too good
important.
too good to be true, right?
Yeah.
So, and the reality is that you do make a lot of assumptions, right? For example, if you're doing customer analytics, you're going to group a bunch of customers into one group and then make a prediction based on all those customers, right? So what you're assuming is that the behavior of one customer in that group is the same as the behavior in another customer. But
Mhm.
it's very important to actually mention those assumptions so that
Oh,
the stakeholder is like, okay, this is the list of assumptions. I'm going to then tell you, am I okay with those assumptions or am I not okay? So it's a very important skill, and it goes a long way in terms of like building a trust with somebody and
mhm.
communicating your ideas, I think.
Yeah, that's the basics of everything. So you mean like to tell them the assumptions and like kind of like make a storytelling with the data, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Storytelling, that's actually great that you brought that up as well, because storytelling is so important, and it we know how to tell beautiful stories without data. So why can we do it with
Yeah.
data? When we're able to write
Yeah.
poems and come up with films and movies, but with data, it's like you're showing a dashboard, and dashboards are something that are, I think, super overplayed in
Oh,
the analytics community, because we like to make dashboards for everything, but actually
oh.
nobody's that interested in dashboards anymore, I think, because you look at them and suddenly you don't want to look at them anymore. And I feel
Yeah.
like we have a lot more potential to be creative with the way that we tell stories with data, a lot clearer in what we're trying to say. Visualization is an amazing field within data science that is largely ignored, but there's a lot of research that goes into visualization, right? And you break down a visualization into its markers and channels and color theory and all this stuff, and you can actually build a visualization that's very, very effective. And there's lots of really, really good examples of this. If you go on the New York Times, for example, they have a data journalism team that puts together graphs just for the news story that they're trying to put out.
Oh.
And when you look at that visualization, immediately you figure out what it's talking about. Immediately you're captivated by it, and that's a very different story to a lot of what's going on in data science, right?
Mhm.
So being able to tell a story with data, it takes some effort, but it's a very, very worthwhile skill to have, because that's what gets people interested as well.
Okay, so thank you for like your tips. So we will like use data visualization in making a data storytelling. Okay, and my last question is like, if you have a like long term your career goals, like, may I ask you to share that with us, like in your 5 years or 10 years or something? Yeah.
Yeah. So just initially, what I'm thinking right now, I'd love to think further in the future, but just for now, I'm trying to eh, dig deep into some area of data science. And like I said, NLP is something that I've sort of latched onto for now, and I'd like to explore a little bit more. So I have gotten a little bit of involvement with reading up research and talking to professors that are involved in NLP, as well as my sort of research interest in that sense is visualizing text data. So that's something that I would like to get involved in the future in some way possible as well. Maybe not through a formal PhD program. That's not something I'm considering, but just involving research in the way that I do things is something that I've always liked doing. So that's something that I'd probably do. Um, I think with financial services, it's incredibly exciting. I do learn a lot and really quickly as well. I think, like I said, with it being fast moving, that's the general the sort of best advantage of working there. You get to work with all sorts of different data sets, and you get to learn quite a lot quite quickly. So I'd like to stay there for now and see what's next, really. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for like answering my extra questions. So again, thank you so much for Lloyd and also Hamna for the wonderful conversation. So yeah, let's wrap up. So please like feel free to contact and connect it with Rohit. Is that okay with you, right?
Yes, please do. Especially, I'm open on LinkedIn. Is probably my best platform to reach out to me, chat with anyone who's interested in any of these things.
Again, feel free to contact and connect with Rohit. Perhaps you share similar interests or looking to enter asset management and so on. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at ucl.datasci for further events and updates. Finally, we hope you join us and tune in next time as well when we will be talking to another interesting speaker. Thank you for listening. Until next time, Bits and Geeks.